Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to the Not a Lonely Coffee Break podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Megan. We're a podcast about coffee and work, but make it queer.
Always make it queer.
hmm
So, fun fact for our listeners, Megan and I usually record the show in the evening time just because that's what fits better with our schedules and everything. But today we decided to break out of the mold and we're actually recording at a morning time. And we feel out of sorts because we're not used to recording when the sun is out and shining
And
in our
actually,
faces.
chugging coffee for the first time of the day.
Yes, also a fun fact, a behind the scenes scoop for you all. Megan and I are not usually drinking coffee in our coffee mugs
My
because we don't
gosh.
record at an appropriate time to be drinking coffee for us at least. Some of
Right.
you might feel like it's okay to drink coffee in the evening time, but we usually are drinking things like hot tea or water or some other beverage. Today, though, Megan, I legit do have coffee.
Yeah, I legit have coffee and I feel the caffeine running through my veins. So I think y'all are in for a treat, hopefully.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Maybe we'll like this though, and we'll start recording more like
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
morning
that'd be
times.
fun.
Yeah. So I wanted to have a little bit of an update for
Oh,
us.
okay.
It's not kind of like a joyous update, but I feel like we talked about this in a previous episode. And so I wanted to share some updates. So Baylor, a while back we were talking about how the School of Social Work returned a significant grant that was going to do a lot of great work and research and understanding of the queer population and how faith communities can be supportive and all that. So we did a whole episode about it. Make
hmm
sure you go check that out if you missed it. So there's been an update last week, towards the end of the week. My various friends and some of the groups I'm a part of for alumni, it was like blowing up. And I was like, what is happening? The Dean of Social Work, who actually was a guest on our show as well, Dr. John Singletary,
hmm
has officially voluntarily stepped down from
Wow.
being the dean of the School of Social Work. Um, it, it reads that it was a mutual thing. Like he is choosing on his own to step down to just prioritize his health and well being and all of that. But after everything that happened, I can't help but feel like it was a sort of you step down or
Take care of it for you.
we're going to
Yeah.
take care of it for you type of situation
Yeah.
because, he was too controversial or whatever. And it's really disheartening. I've said this before. I went to Baylor. That was the school I graduated from. I had John as a professor. I learned so much from him. And he's always been just a tremendous voice in the community. And like, I don't know, to me, he really represents what my profession is as a social worker. And so it's just really disheartening to see this wonderful social worker who isn't just an ally to the queer community, but like all communities,
hmm
basically be told that he's being too loud when he's not doing anything that goes against his code of ethics, his personal values.
hmm
Um, so it was really disheartening, but also really encouraging to see how many people online, at least in my circles, were, um, showing their support to him, letting him know the difference that he made in their life.
Yeah.
But yes, he is no longer the dean of the School of Social Work at Baylor.
Wow. Yeah, that is really disappointing. It's just like, yes, we know that these things are targeting our community and trying to silence us, but then also like from a professional standpoint for social
Mhm.
workers, essentially we're like, okay, we're not going to discuss, gender or transgender or
Mhm.
non-binary issues in the classroom. But as a social worker, when we're trying to help certain populations and like see like what programs work and don't work. Like we have to understand certain groups and
Right.
cultures and, the way we interact with them.
Mhm.
And it's like they're blindfolding y'all. you know? It's
Yeah, and it's well, and I don't it's not just happening within social work programs. Obviously, that's where I'm paying more attention because that's my profession, but, I mean, in our state, there's been sort of this ongoing saga with Texas A&M.
Mhm.
And that wasn't a social work class. That was like an English children's literature class, which actually more information is coming out about it that basically says there was a lot of disclaimers in the course syllabus letting people know that different topics were gonna be discussed, and at no point was it meant to say that you have to agree with it. It was just so that people had a better understanding of different like, diversity in children's literature
Mhm.
and all of that. But, like, that has prompted bigger discussions, I think, about, did it actually violate the law? It didn't, but now we're saying, "Oh, it didn't violate the law, so let's make it a rule now."
Yeah.
Texas Tech has just been the first school in Texas to, announce that within, 5 of their systems, so you know how, like, they have satellite campuses and stuff? So, all of the Texas Tech universities within their systems, they are prohibiting discussions of gender non-binary, transgender, anything that goes against sort of what we are being told by our government officials about gender. Anything that goes against that is not being permitted to be taught in classrooms. And so, are we really equipping our future professionals with the knowledge they need to be successful in their professions?
Right, yeah.
No. That's the
No.
answer.
The
No.
answer is
The
no.
answer is no.
And
Anyway, I just wanted to share that update because I know that we had done a previous episode kind of about research and a little bit of college. I have a feeling there's more to dig into here that we can explore perhaps in a future episode. But I just wanted to share that with you that our
yeah, thank you.
friend of the show and ally to the community, John Singletary, is experiencing some transitions right now. And so if you know him or you're connected to him, send him a little note,
Yeah,
letting him know
support.
you're thinking about him.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're a student or maybe a professional in the higher education system and you want to talk about it, you can always reach out to us on email. We'd like to have those discussions and see like how we could spread the word or educate on the issues going on there because I know that the education system in itself is its own little
Yeah.
beast. So,
Yeah.
but we'd love to hear from y'all and hear your feedback
Mhm.
as far as what's really going on.
Yeah, let us know. We love to hear from y'all.
Yes, yes, we do. Well, you know what is happening this weekend?
What?
If you didn't know, Pride Kel-So is this
Woo
weekend
woo!
on Saturday. That is going to be October 4th,
Mhm.
from 2 to 6. So that's in the Keller South Lake area. It's on Facebook if you guys need some more information about the details on location and whatnot, and also safety. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm super excited. There's going to be so many affirming businesses and vendors. Get it?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be really awesome. It's family friendly. Like, I feel like they've really done a really great job at making sure that they find ways for it to be family friendly. And just like you said, Megan, they've been really diligent about posting update and information for everyone on their Facebook page. So if you are planning on coming, but you are like, I don't know a whole lot of information, go check out their Facebook page. It's Pride Kelso. And that's where you can get all of the information about this weekend. But y'all, Megan and I were just recently looking through like the information they sent us as vendors. It's gonna like y'all, it's a lot of businesses. we were like, we were like, "Oh my gosh, how is anyone gonna be able to do all of this?" So it's kind of like a giant which Megan and I love this, it's kind of like a giant resource fair with additional fun things going on.
Hmm.
Lots of opportunities to check out, lots of different kinds of vendors, resources, all sorts of stuff.
Entertainment. Yeah, I think that's the
Entertainment.
big thing is like it's not just like people you could just, at most resource fairs, you could just walk to a table, pick up the swag and, go along and whatnot. But it really seems like there's gonna be entertainment and like fun stuff to do and music
Mhm.
and of course the best act of all, us. Dirt.
Us, of course. No,
And
we have a pretty decent location, I think, based on
Hopefully,
their map. So we are gonna be located just so that way you guys know where we're at in the sea of everyone, because we must be on your stop. We're gonna be located actually closer to the building underneath like an awning area, and we'll have our tent, so lots of shade. And there'll be us and some other media type of individuals. But that's where you can find us, is closer to the building, up under the awning. So come visit us, get some swag, maybe a little coffee.
maybe a little coffee. We are gonna have some sips for y'all.
So we can't wait. I'm really excited. But Megan, I'm really excited about our show today. I think it's going to be a really timely conversation that we've kind of been sprinkling some stuff throughout, but I just think a lot of people are going through a lot of different things within the workplace. So hopefully it'll be helpful for people. But today we're going to be diving into another relationship within the workplace, but one that gets overlooked when we talk about workplace stuff. And that is the relationship that we have with ourselves. So
Hello,
important.
Megan.
This
Yeah,
episode is for you.
this dedicated to you. Yeah, no, I talk about relationship with yourself. Like, we're talking about being harshest critics.
Oh, yes.
Are we our best friend, or I like this word, saboteur?
You like the word that you can't pronounce.
That I can't pronounce.
No, it's true though. It's the
How do I say it?
saboteur.
Saboteur. Okay,
Saboteur?
thank you.
I think it's
Yes.
saboteur.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Maddie, I mean, whenever you do a lot of presentations and stuff,
Mhm.
and it's like, even though you've done so much and you do this quite frequently, like, do you ever find yourself just like beating yourself up after a presentation, or like, a resource like a fair or a networking
Yeah.
thing?
No, absolutely. I am probably my biggest barrier to my own success. I think it's one of those things. I was thinking as we were kind of forming our thoughts around this show, I was really thinking about this, and I do think that early on in my career, I maybe didn't feel it as much. That I was a little bit more confident and was like, I belong. I mean, yeah, I had my own doubts about things, especially if I was meeting like new people
Mhm.
that I found to be a little intimidating because they were so awesome. I would sometimes kinda have my own doubts about my abilities and things like that. But now, doing more public speaking types of things and trainings, if I have a day that I don't feel like I was on my game, or I was, like, jumbling over my words, or I didn't present something in the way that I envisioned myself presenting it, I beat myself up. Even when people are saying like, "Oh my gosh, that was so good. You did so wonderful." I'm like, were we in the same room? Were you in the same training that I was? Because I was all over the place. And so, yeah, sometimes I just feel like I don't deserve to be in the space that I'm in and considered the expert that's facilitating the conversation, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I definitely feel the same. I think for me, it was a little different when I was coming into this new profession. I would say when I was younger, you're right. When I was younger, because I was went into trade work, right? I was in dental.
Mhm.
So when I was younger, I did feel pretty confident. Maybe it was just that young mind not being completely
It
formed.
was our like know-it-all selves. Like, we know
Yeah,
everything.
I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And eventually, and I did turn out to be really good at that job, not gonna lie. But when I went to school at university, and immediately I was just like, well,
Mm.
this is not my people. I didn't feel included, or I think most of that was just me putting that on myself because it wasn't familiar to my family. Like, I was a first generation. And then secondly, it was just like I wasn't prepared to do any of this growing up. Like, so I was like, okay, I'm not meant to be here. And then when I went into my profession, it was just like even more doubly so. Like,
Right.
and then of course we had our bad boss, but
No,
but
no, no. I
no.
think the bad boss though, like, so I used to think that people would just kind of throw out this term imposter syndrome, like, left and right, and they
Mm,
didn't really understand what it meant, or that, like, they weren't really feeling that. They were just throwing it out there, honestly, sometimes as, like, an excuse
Yeah.
for something. And that was my perspective as like a leader at the time.
Mm.
And I was a little bit more I still had like self-doubts or whatever, but overall I was pretty confident. And so people would just throw this term out and I'd be like, "Do you even know what that means?" Like,
Yeah.
no. But then when we experienced that workplace where we were constantly being told we weren't good enough, and we had a boss who was always doubting us and doubting our perspectives, doubting our abilities, doubting that confidence that we had, I started to feel it
Yeah.
because I was like, am I like a shitty worker? Like,
Mhm.
do I know what I'm talking about?
It's like affirming those negative thoughts,
Right,
right?
and
Like
so
some of us like already have those negative thoughts
mhm,
of due to anxiety or like maybe feeling like this is a new spot for me, a new environment. And then to have someone affirm those negative thoughts, you're like,
right,
holy
mhm,
crud.
right, and I think, like, it's one of those things where it's like, that's a human like, having a little bit of doubt, especially even in, like, a new environment or a new situation, like, that's gonna be common, but when you're in a place where someone is constantly just affirming those things, even though they're not true, it can really take a toll, and so I feel like that was when I saw a shift, and I do experience, I think, imposter syndrome a lot more than I used to, because I'm constantly like and now it's even kind of like, are people gonna take me seriously if they find out that I did lose my job? Are people gonna want to hear what I have to say if they find out that I wasn't good enough? And that I think that's kind of where it took a turn for me. Um, but I was curious what the research said.
Of course. Let's hear it. What does the data
So,
say?
first of all, self doubt is very common in workplaces. And there was a recent study from this organizational consulting firm called, I know it sounds silly, but they're like legit, y'all. Corn Ferry,
Corn
Corn
fed.
with a K. And they found that 71% of US CEOs experience symptoms of imposter syndrome, which is that feeling that maybe they don't deserve the success or that someone will call them out. And that's CEOs.
Yeah. That's wild. That like you've made it all this way.
Mhm.
Like there's competition. You've tried out for this job. You made it. You made it, girl. And then
Mhm.
you're like, wait, no, I don't deserve this.
Yep.
I have also seen some statistics that the American Survey Center has that 1 in 3 American workers report the following: I often doubt myself, my professional abilities or achievements, and describes them somewhat and very well. So, I think that imposter syndrome really impacts how we're portraying ourselves as well,
Mhm.
because if we're doing that, we're doubting ourselves. We're not gonna it kind of makes me think of like using your intuition,
Mhm.
like if you're second guessing your intuition and you go back and you're like, oh, shoot, I should have just went with my first choice because my first
Mhm.
choice was the correct one,
Right.
and just really self doubting the fact that you have put yourself here, you've gone through the training, that you should trust your ability. Yeah. So, all this self doubt and turmoil inside, I'm really curious, like, how that affects feedback within how we accept feedback and give it in the work.
Mhm. No, I think you're right because feedback is a vital part of any job, right? Giving and receiving feedback. And just thinking about this the statistic about CEOs, if I have a CEO who's experiencing imposter syndrome, they perhaps could be giving feedback in a manner that the employee receives as kind of like, right, is it going to trickle down from the
Mm,
top down, right? So
I
if I'm
see.
giving feedback and I'm doubting myself, is my feedback going to reflect that I'm also doubting you as my employee? Because I'm trying to hide the fact that I might be experiencing doubts, right?
Right.
And so, and it's not, it's not employees' jobs, I think, to like make sure their CEOs aren't experiencing imposter syndrome. But I do think like feedback is a way that we can all try to curb some of those feelings, right? Making sure that we're delivering feedback in appropriate ways because it's such a vital side. When we're talking about the spectrum of growth, people who are experiencing imposter syndrome aren't going to feel like they deserve certain promotions or opportunities. And so they might be, I guess, more vulnerable to hearing feedback and receiving it in more of a harsher or critical perspective, even if it wasn't delivered in a harsh or critical perspective. Does that make sense?
Mhm. No, it does make sense. No, because like, it's an abusive cycle,
Mhm.
right? Like, we're self-abuse in that cycle of abuse, you hear, like, okay, if the child experiences abuse, that's how they
Yeah.
tolerate or deal with pain and frustration, so when they get older, they deal with it in the same way with their own children, and I'm just
Mhm.
making a connection here, but, I mean, in some ways, we're doing it to each other, if we
Yeah.
don't know
It's
how
our
to.
it's a new trauma response.
It's a choice. Exactly. I mean,
Feedback, a trauma response.
and now that I would really like to dig into because, yeah, if I'm constantly afraid of how my boss or like how people are perceiving,
Mhm.
and I'm like, well, if this person under me I'm feeling like, well, they're making me feel like I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm going to make them feel like they don't know what they're doing. So I
Mhm.
feel like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
It's
it's
really
just this
crazy.
Mhm.
Just that feedback loop, right? And so, um, in my thoughts, as we're talking about it, I think it's really important to know that, we can't control how others feel about us, and we can't control
Mhm.
how people perceive us. We can control the way we think, how we
Yep.
affirm ourselves. I think having some time to really reflect on it and see how I'm engaging with my self care. Am I taking breaks? Am I
Mhm.
super charged up? I noticed recently I've been feeling like a lot of short circuits, like when I get too much information.
Mhm.
So just recognizing that, like, hey, I might need to take a break so that I'm not continuing on this cycle.
No, I think that's important and really helpful tips, for just being, like, self-aware of yourself and things that you might need, and it all does, I think, tie into some of that feedback, but also, I know, Megan, you and I were chatting recently offline and talking about how we're seeing a lot of people kind of highlighting different things that fall into that area of perfectionism, and I think that that's sort of a best friend to imposter syndrome because
Mm,
we have this idea of, well, if I'm perfect, if I do things perfect, then no one will have a reason to doubt me being here. And I see that even like in college students who believe that if they don't get an A in a class or maintain a 4.0 GPA, it means that they're less than in some way
mhm.
and that they're not good. When in reality, it's like, you got a good grade. Like, move on. You're still good.
C's make
No one
degrees.
yeah, no one is doubting your abilities. No
Right,
one is saying that you aren't good enough. No one is saying that you aren't perfect. You just have different strengths. And so I think being able to reflect within yourself and say, you know what, these are my strengths. This is what I know I can bring to the table. These are things that I value. Even this is how I receive feedback. This is what feedback looks like for me. I think it can really help you advocate for those things that you might need, like what Megan was saying, right? Do I need to make sure that I'm taking a break during the day? Do I need to do things to kind of re-energize my creativity or things like that? Like I know for me, when I worked in an office setting, I knew that I was more productive in the morning times. And I know Megan, like in when we worked together, for me, it was like I would actually get to the office like almost an hour to 2 hours before everybody.
mhm,
And that was when I was my most productive
yeah,
because I didn't have all these people around me. It was just me. I could just do my thing, move at my own pace. I was still productive when people came into the office, but maybe it just looked a little bit different.
right,
But I also knew that morning times, that was my like golden hour. I was going to get a whole lot of stuff done
mhm,
early in the morning. And then in the afternoons, I was going to not be as productive because I had used up all my energy in the morning.
right, right.
So people just being aware of different things and how you can advocate for those needs, I think can help reduce some of those feelings of doubt.
When it comes to those feelings of doubt, don't I think it's easy to spiral, you know?
Mhm.
It's easy to spiral and to just let it really take over for you. But, I hope that if you're listening to this now, maybe you take a moment and you're like, just be nice to yourself. I'm sure if you have been in therapy, the best thing is like, hey, just be nice to yourself and just talk to yourself
Mhm,
as like how you would speak to a friend, you know? Do you talk to your
mhm.
friends this way? You know, simple things like that. But
No, I think that's I think such a cheesy saying. I
it
think that
is.
a lot of people we hear it and we, like, make fun of it or whatever, but it is true. Like,
Mhm.
we tying it back into our first little thought of we're our own harshest critics, like, some of the stuff we say to ourselves, like, I would never say that to a friend.
Unless I hated you.
Then you're not actually friends with that person.
Yeah.
So you're not saying it to a friend, right? You're saying
Right,
it to
right.
a nemesis.
A nemesis. Yeah.
But I do think, like, cheesiness aside, it's so like, if that's what you need to say to remind yourself to, like, be nice to yourself, do it.
Yeah.
And that will I mean, even just saying things like, "I am enough." Wearing your little shirt from Barbie that what is it? "I am Kenough."
I'm Knuff. Yep. I am Knuff. That's
Uh,
correct.
because it I think it'll also improve our mental well-being, right? And there are studies out there, y'all, that correlate they show, like, a strong correlation between people who are being nice to themselves, practicing self-care, advocating for what they need within the workplace. It shows that they have higher rates of productivity, they have a more positive mental well-being, and they even just get along with, like, they have better relationships overall with their workplace, whether it's managers, coworkers, their work environment, all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Ultimately, just creating a better relationship with yourself is just gonna create a better work-life balance overall, you know?
Yes, preach.
Preach. Clap, 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 clap. Yeah, that was I hope that was a good ride for y'all because it was a good ride for me. This caffeine is
It did its work
it
today.
did its work, yeah.
I am out of coffee though, unfortunately. All out for the day. So that is our cue to wrap up. But thank you all for joining us and be sure to subscribe if you have not already. I don't know why you wouldn't have, but if you haven't, make sure that you subscribe.
Be sure to stay connected with us on our socials. Let's continue the conversation. We'd love to hear all your questions and your experience with navigating in the workplace.
Absolutely. We love social media, y'all. You can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, Patreon, and of course, be sure to check out the show on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple so that you can continue to listen to us. We hope you'll continue to join us for Not a Lonely Coffee Break. Again, we are your hosts. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Megan.
Cheers,
Cheers, queer.
queer.